Hey everybody, what's going on? Hellmite here, bringing another video from Grab the Lantern today. It's Wednesday and the patch is actually already live, which makes it the perfect time for us to talk through the top 5 changes of patch 14.5. I'll let you guys know what the biggest changes were and what you can be looking forward to in the coming weeks. 14.5 is a middle of the year patch. There's a bunch of interesting stuff on it, but nothing in particular too heavy. But let's go ahead and hop into things regardless, starting off with the number 5 change here, the changes to Bel'Veth. Right now, Bel'Veth's E is basically an I win button in an isolated duel, which makes her exceptionally strong in the early game, but also at basically all stages of the game if you try to fight her 1v1, because it gets up to 70% damage reduction during the channel, which is absolutely nuts. As a result, she's getting hit with a massive nerf on this patch. Her E is going down to 55% DR from 70% DR at max rank, which means you are taking a lot more damage during your E than you were previously. This means that Bel'Veth players are going to have to play a lot more defensively and not count on their E to bail them out of every single bad situation. There will be times now where Bel'Veth presses E at 300 HP, and you just kill her anyways because the DR isn't quite as much as it was before, which I think is overall a good thing, as there wasn't that much counterplay to Bel'Veth E at the end of the day. There's a bug fix here as well. It's a little less relevant, but it does amount to fewer stacks overall for Bel'Veth as she takes all the void grubs in a given game, which is quite nice. This means Bel'Veth players are going to feel substantially weaker, but also generally some of the things that you're doing are still going to feel the same, which is quite nice. The number 4 change on this week's patch are the changes to Brand. Riot are generally happy with Brand's performance out of the jungle, but less happy with how strong he is in both mid lane and at support. These changes are aimed at reducing the amount of burst he can throw out and prevent him from insta-giving someone nearly as often. Though the nerfs to his R here look lackluster, remember that this is damage per bounce, which means that if you get all 5 bounces onto enemy champions, it amounts to 125 less damage at level 11 and 250 less damage at level 16, which is substantial. The ultimate cooldown increase also means that Brand will have to be more calculated about when he uses Pyroclasm, instead of just saying yes to it the second he sees an enemy champion on his screen. I'm very happy with these changes, but I would also expect a lot more to come for the Burning Vengeance in the future, as I don't think that these are substantial enough to really nerf him in a meaningful way. Moving on down to the number 3 changes here, we're talking about the Rek'Sai follow-up. Now, the rework she got in 14.4, I really like directionally, and Riot feel the same, but it also landed a little roughly. She not only lost a lot of power, but also had a number of bugs introduced. As a result, Riot are handing her a ton of interesting buffs to hopefully bring her power back up. Importantly, Rek'Sai's auto attacks are actually getting some very interesting changes here. This looks icky and gross, but fundamentally it means that they animate faster and come out quicker. You get the damage off more quickly, which means she should feel snappier with her auto attacks, and her Q enhanced auto attacks can no longer be cancelled. That was a change they actually made because of a bug, but now they're refixing it on this patch, so they're back to being uncancelable when they start. Rek'Sai's unburrowed E and her ultimate are also receiving some decent power-ups here. The E is getting a couple of extra % max health damage at rank 1, and her R has had its base damage and its missing health damage increase. All of these are very nice changes for Rek'Sai overall. Now, it's too early to call it yet, and I think Rek'Sai will need additional power following these changes, but I hope these at the very least help her feel better in the meantime, while players are still kind of figuring out how to navigate the new Rek'Sai. Moving on to the number 2 changes here on this week's patch, we're going to be talking about the Smolder changes. Riot are generally happy with where Smolder's landed as well, and I can't fault them. I feel the same. I feel like he has plenty of counterplay and is a late-game oriented champion, but he still has enough power to be playable in pro play, but not too playable in pro play, if you understand what I'm saying. The changes here today, though, are aimed at fixing some outstanding issues with his kit. These are his E being useless for damage, and also how dependent he is on stacks for scaling. I feel like Smolder gets handed a lot of power that doesn't require him to actually scale. You hit 225 stacks at 25 minutes into the game, and you're like, great, I don't need to scale anymore. Like, I've got my max power. At this point, everything else is gravy, which feels odd for a champion that's about infinitely scaling. And Riot are also addressing his R's sweet spot mechanic, which doesn't matter enough right now. First up, Smolder's Q, the bonus true damage he gets at the final evolution, now has a much smaller ratio. There is no flat value. Instead, it scales with his AD, AP, and stacks of his passive. This means that it will be weaker at the 225 mark when he gets it, but it does mean that it will continue to scale throughout the rest of the game, meaning that as the game continues to go, Smolder will be able to apply more and more true damage dots to his enemies, as well as execute them at higher and higher thresholds, which is quite nice. The Smolder's E is now gaining extra bolts based on passive stacks instead of crit chance. This is huge because beforehand it was just kind of a useless ability for damage, and you didn't really want to build 100% crit on this champion in general, so I'm happy that this has now been divorced from crit strike and now scales with his passive. And Mom's damage has gone down overall and its healing was weakened, but it has a better sweet spot multiplier, and the healing now has an AD scaling on it, so again, as Smolder scales, he will get some of that power back. Overall, I'm generally very happy with these changes that shove Smolder further into the scaling category, and hopefully it'll continue to be playable without being overbearing on future patches. Finally, the number one changes of the next week's patch are the changes to Seraphine, and this is a big change list. But fundamentally, what Riot are attempting to do is to, once again, close the gap between AP Seraphine and Support Seraphine. Despite the fact that Support Seraphine is critically weak, players still overwhelmingly play her at support. Like, it's not even close, you guys. People play Seraphine at support more than any of her other positions remotely. However, AP carry bot lane Seraphine has been overbearing. So Riot are nerfing AP carry Seraphine specifically for the bot lane, but also there are going to be some knock-on effects at mid lane, and in exchange they are buffing up support Seraphine because players have voted, and that's where they like playing Seraphine the most. If you're a support Seraphine stan, there is a lot to like about this change list. Her base stats have been shuffled to be more about mana regeneration than flat mana, which makes her synergize more support itemization. Her Q has a lower mana cost at rank 1 and higher base damage, which makes it better as a 1-point wonder if you're a support Seraphine, on top of having a faster missile speed and a lower cooldown. These are huge for the reliability of this button. This is nice for bot lane Seraphine as well, but fundamentally, this is a lot more of a buff to support Seraphine because of the other changes that the Q has seen. W's cooldown has been dramatically reduced at early ranks and has a lower mana cost, making it much easier to use as a support Seraphine. Then her E's cooldown now scales with rank and costs the same amount of mana at all ranks, and slow duration now scales with ability rank. Now, there are some issues with the slow duration. It is weaker early on when you first pick up the ability, but as you max it, the slow duration actually increases. This, I think, is something that both bot lane Seraphine and support Seraphine are enjoying overall. However, it now has a minion damage modifier, which really sucks for mid lane Seraphine or support or bot lane Seraphine who are going to use this ability to wave clear. You're just straight up dealing 70% of the ability's damage to minions instead of 100% like you had before. Finally, Seraphine's ultimate has also gotten its damage slashed, as well as the cooldown increased at later ranks, meaning Seraphine will have to be a lot more cognizant of when and where she uses this ability. This is, again, a nerf more to AP carry Seraphine than support Seraphine, because if you have a lower level, you're not worrying about the scaling being worse overall. Generally, if you're a support Seraphine, you're very happy with this change list. If you are a bot lane or mid lane Seraphine, you are getting nerfed. There's no way around it. It's very unfortunate because I feel like Seraphine is a very interesting mid lane champion, very similar to like AP Karma or Orianna mid. I liked having another utility champion that was playable in mid. I think she is still playable in these positions, but certainly she's getting a lot of nerfs to compensate for her weakness at the support position, and that does feel bad, but most of you play her at support, so you guys are going to be very happy with this change list overall. And that is going to be it for me today, guys. Those are the top 5 changes of patch 14.5. Let me know what you're most excited for down in the comments section below. If you enjoyed the video today, go ahead and leave it a like. And if you really enjoyed the video, consider subscribing. I upload a video every Monday, Friday, and on patch days like today as well. Once again, thank you guys so very much for watching. I do appreciate it. And I will talk to you all later.